Well, welcome to your fall prevention webinar. My name is Leigh Graham. I'm with Vintage Fitness, and myself and Anna are here today to share some tips and tricks with you for how to stay safe this winter and avoid a fall. We hope that you'll be participatory with us today. So in preparation for that, if you don't know how to unmute yourself, you can practice. You can also drop a message in the chat. And I would love for you to
talk to me
and I would also love for you to get a piece of paper and a pen because we're going to do a quiz in a minute that will be very helpful for you to assess your risk for a fall. If you're not familiar with Vintage Fitness, I'm just going to let you know a little bit about it. Vintage Fitness works exclusively with seniors. It's been around since 2005. So for almost 20 years, we've been focused on energizing the lives of those over 50, with the majority of our clients being over 65. Our oldest client right now is 95. All of our trainers are specialized older adult fitness specialists, and you're in good hands with us. We are results oriented, and clients achieve their goals with us over time. So we like to say we're not a quick fix solution, but rather a longer term quality of life based solution and functional solution. My name's Leigh Graham. I'm the owner of Vintage Fitness. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. I love connecting with you through these webinars. Every 6 weeks or so, we put these on. And I've been working for fitness for about 20 years. It's definitely my passion and my love. I'm going to be joined today by one of our fabulous trainers at Vintage Fitness, Anna Ferreira. She is a registered kinesiologist. She has a focus in senior health. And she is very well versed in cognitive and physical health. So I'll be introducing her very shortly. We're going to be sharing a lot of information with you today. So we do hope you'll take notes. And I do hope, again, you have that piece of paper and pencil handy. All right. So this webinar is for you if you have had a fall before, if you're worried about having a fall, if you'd like to improve your stability and balance, if you want to reduce your fall risk, or if you want to ensure a safer winter for yourself or for a loved one. Does that sound about right? Okay. So we're going to cover a lot of information today, like I said. Some of today's topics include components of balance, some risk factors for falls. We're going to share practical exercises you can do at home with very little equipment and that don't take very much time. And things that you can do in your environment at home to keep you safer. Any questions so far? Good. Okay. Okay. First question. Has anybody here ever had a fall? Feel free to share by raising your hand, dropping a message, or unmuting yourself. And if anybody would like to share how they feel about falling.
So feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Don't be shy.
Safe space here.
So Hillary did put in the chat, yes, both of her ankles gave way. So sorry that happened, Hillary, but today will be a good webinar for you for sure. Anyone else?
Yeah. Even if you're feeling more nervous about falling, sometimes it's helpful to share and then you know you're not alone. I mean, uh, about 100 people signed up for the webinar today. So, there's a reason. And
So
that's wonderful.
Linda added in here that she's terrified of having more falls. So we'll definitely talk more about that, and there'll be lots of great information to help you prevent more falls and feel more comfortable about the thought about of falling.
Thank you so much for sharing, you guys. And again, feel free to add anything as we go along. We're going to do the quiz now. It's 12 questions. It's going to help you assess whether you are at a greater risk of falls or not. So the number of yeses that you answer will dictate that. So you can just like put a tick on your page for each yes that you have, or maybe you can even count them on your fingers. We'll see. So there's 12 questions and we'll get started. I have fallen in the last 6 months. That's number one. Number two, I use or have been advised to use a cane or walker to get around safely. Number three, sometimes I feel unsteady when I'm walking. Remember, you can just put a tick for each of these that are a yes. Number four, I steady myself by holding onto furniture when walking at home. Number five, I'm worried about falling. Number six, I need to push with my hands to stand up from a chair. Number seven, I have some trouble stepping up onto a curb. Number eight, I often have to rush to the toilet. Number nine, I've lost some feeling in my feet. Number 10, I take medicine that sometimes makes me feel lightheaded or more tired than usual. Number 11, I take medicine to help me sleep or improve my mood. And number 12, I often feel sad or depressed. So now you can add up the number of points for each yes response that you have from those 12 questions. And if you scored 4 points or more, you may be at risk for falling. But the good news is that we've given you clues on things that might be risk factors, and we're going to tell you all the ways in which you can mitigate those factors and empower you again to feel confident. So we're going to move on. Does anybody want to share anything in terms of their results or any other thoughts at this point? Open floor.
So just at the beginning of doing the questionnaire, Mary did add in that she hasn't fallen yet, but she does feel anxious about it, especially on uneven or slippery ground, which is even more challenging in Canada with the snow and the ice and the salt. So yeah, but if anyone has any thoughts from the questionnaire, feel free to put that in the chat, which I'm monitoring, or unmute yourself.
Thank you for sharing that, Mary. Yes. And it's good to share that because again, then we know we're not alone, right?
Yeah.
All righty. All right. So I'm
Hillary,
going to share. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add that Hillary said she wants to learn about making hips and knees stronger. So we'll definitely be chatting about that. And Linda said earlier about ability to get back up.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh,
And we are going to
and
be touching on those things.
Gina had a fabulous question here. So what does sadness have to do with falling? So I can go ahead and talk about that. The reason that it has to do with falling is when we are dealing with sadness, depression, we have the tendency not to go as many places, to be more socially isolated, and we'll do less things. So we'll move our body less, so we reduce the strength. And then your emotional state can play into if you feel fearful of falling. And if you have that fear, you are more likely to fall because you're fixating on it. So it's a bit of both the physical side of it, the social side of it, and the emotional side of it. But that was a really, really great question, Gina. Hopefully that answers your question there.
Yeah. And I think Hillary's tuning in from somewhere far away, isn't it? Hillary, where are you tuning in from?
From Scotland.
Oh,
Oh,
awesome.
welcome. Great to see you. Okay, so we'll continue on with a few statistics about falls, not to get you all worried about it, but it's just good to know. It's the leading cause of injury among Canadian seniors. 20 to 30% of older adults have one or more falls each year. And falls are the cause of 85% of seniors' injury-related hospitalizations. That's a high number. They're also the cause of 95% of all hip fractures. And half of the falls resulting in hospitalizations actually happen in the home. Why do fall risks increase as we age? We're going to talk about the ways that we can sort of reverse aging and some of the things that come along with it. But over time, we do know that muscle and bone strength can decline, especially with inactivity. There's reduced joint flexibility and mobility. Balance issues can occur from a variety of factors, including cognitive decline, chronic health conditions, including pain. There can be reduced vision or hearing loss, which can affect your risk for falls, walking difficulties, and the increased use of medications increases the risk as well. So studies do show that if you have 5 or more medications, that can increase your risk of falls. But aging doesn't mean that falling is inevitable. And even all of those factors that we talked about before don't have to happen with aging. So there are other risk factors, environmental, as we touched on before. We're going to expand on that soon. A history of falling means you could be more predisposed to fall again. And another risk factor is changes in behavior. And some of that is around worry. You can change the way you walk, the way your gait is. It can be less like functionally, structurally safe. Because your fear of falling, you can look down at your toes or shuffle your feet, and then you're not supporting yourself appropriately. Decreased activity and changes to nutrition can also be a risk factor. So getting the proper nourishment and hydration is important. Okay, here's a question for you. 2 people trip, but 1 falls. What's the difference between these 2 people? Feel free to take a stab at this and share your thoughts. And you can drop it in the chat or unmute yourself.
So Gina says reaction time based on flexibility and strength. Allison says core strength to stabilize their balance. Linda says better balance. Good answers.
Good answers. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Absolutely, 100%. Okay, good. Okay, so there's 2 parts of a fall. First of all, there's the loss of balance. This can happen to all of us. This can happen as a result of lack of joint mobility, particularly in the ankles, sometimes through the neck for peripheral vision. It can happen as a result of weakness in the lower body or decreased reaction time. And then there's a second part, which is the failed recovery, which can be due to a lack of sensory function. A lot of times we can lose that sensation in our feet, and that gives us less feedback and less chance of responding. Weaker muscles, that can be leg strength or core strength, as it was mentioned in the chat, and decline can definitely result in this as well. So the difference between someone who falls and someone who doesn't is, of course, the ability to recover. If you lose your balance and you recover, then you won't fall. But this being said, we do want to work on both sides of this equation. And I'm going to turn it over to Anna in a minute here. And I'm just going to remind you that she's going to show you some exercises that you can follow along with. So you're going to want to keep this video so that you can do those at home with her anytime you like. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Anna now. Please welcome Anna.
Awesome. So we're going to go over some of the components of balance. So balance is one aspect of, fall prevention, but we will talk about other aspects such as strength, keeping on top of health issues, stuff like that. So there is your sense of touch. The fancy word for it is proprioception. So again, like when we lose feeling in our feet, that can affect our ability to balance because we don't have that proper connection to the ground. There's vestibular, so that's your inner ear and the connection to the brain. Visual, so your eyes, and kind of in with the vestibular side of it would be your ability to hear as well. And then musculoskeletal, so your muscle and joint sensors. So all of those are components of it. So it's really important that we make sure that we can see properly, we can hear properly, and we work on aspects of proprioception and the muscles and joints. And those are done through exercise and staying active generally. You can go ahead. Yeah. So as Leigh kind of alluded to earlier, our feet and ankles are very, very important. So it's how we interact with the ground. So that tells us, what's below us, and it affects all the way up the chain. So our feet are our base, and then we have our knees, our hips, our torso, core, shoulders, head. So it's the base. So we want to make sure that we have a strong foundation. So that's why they're really, really important. And walking is a very complex movement, and so is balance. And so that's where the ankles come into play again, because again, it's the foundation, the base. So we want to make sure that they're strong, and that we can use them adequately to have proper walking patterns, and proper balance so that we don't have those falls. Also, interestingly, it is one of the first muscle groups that tends to be affected by the aging process and tends to atrophy and lose range of motion if we're inactive. Of course, we can work with activity to prevent this from happening. And that is going to then affect our ability to walk. And when we have our incorrect walking patterns, then that's going to put us more at risk for falls. Okay. So the big thing here is that exercise is super, super important. So I think the commonality is when people develop a fear of falling, they tend to want to stay away from leaving the house, from doing exercises because they are afraid of something bad happening. But the benefits of exercise far outweighs the risks. And that being said, obviously we got to do it in the correct way. So we always want to make sure safety is number one. But there's lots that you can do. Even if you're living at home, even if you are starting from scratch, there's lots we can do to maintain our muscle and bone strength and flexibility and balance. So I'm going to be going over that now. Okay, so I just want to make sure that, okay, there we go. Just give me 1 second here. I'm just going to make these screens similar size for me. Okay. So I'm going to go over a series of exercises here. And we're going to start with our feet because as we said, that is the base. So lots of really simple exercises that you can do with stuff at home. Can you go back, Leigh? Perfect. All right, so the first one we're going to do is towel curls. I just have a blanket here. So a blanket works, a towel, a t-shirt, anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that on the floor here. I'm going to take off my shoe, take off my sock hair. So the towel curls are super easy. So you can do it sitting. Sitting is easier for this one. So you put your foot on the towel, and what you're going to do, I'm going to show you with my hand here. You're just going to curl your toes. So try and grab the blanket with your toes. So I'm pulling it closer towards me. And you can even try and push it back out. So if it gets really curled up, you can kind of push it back out. So what we're doing is we're working on that foot flexibility. Besides doing it with the towel, we can also just work on moving. Make sure you guys can see here. And Leigh, if at any point you guys can't see well, please let me know. So we can also work on moving just our toes without the blanket, just focusing on bringing the toes closer to the ground and up in the air, closer to the ground, up in the air. So a lot of people, as they get older, lose a lot of mobility in their feet. But again, super, super important for that balance. Other exercise here that is great. I'm going to take off my other shoe here so you can see better. And this one I'll face you for. So this one you can do standing or sitting. It's good to start with sitting and then standing as you get better. And what we're really going to do is try and work on the arch of our foot. So you're going to have your foot flat against the ground, and you're just going to think about pulling up on your arch. So this underside of your foot, you're going to think about pulling that up by pushing everything else down. So your big toe should be down, your tiny toe and your heel, and you're just really thinking about pulling it up. It's a very small movement, but has a huge, huge impact there. Other things that are great for our feet here, we can do pointing our toes away from us and bringing towards us. So toes to your nose and then gas pedal. So those are great. We can also do circles, taking our time. Any areas that feel a little bit sticky or hard, you want to spend more time in that area. And we can do clockwise and counterclockwise. And then to have a little bit more fun with it, we can also do the alphabet. So try and draw with your big toe. So right now I'm doing B, C, D. Usually it doesn't look like much to anyone else but you, but it doesn't matter. We're just trying to get that range of motion. We can also do our pointing our toes to the ground in a different way. So a little harder than that would be holding onto a chair and going up onto our toes. So we can do that standing. That's actually another one we can do sitting as well. And if that gets really easy, you can then grab a weight, put it on your legs, and then go up onto your toes. Okay, so you can go on to the next slide. Any questions so far? Those all good. What about foot cramps or Charlie horses? Good question, Gina. So cramping, usually there is kind of like mixed research on that. There is kind of the older theory is that it has more to do with hydration balance and salt intake. Hydration is very important, but some of kind of the newer theory is based on basically underusing the muscles and basically our nerves kind of like misfiring, which causes the cramps. But a really easy way, if you are getting a foot cramp, is it depends on where the cramp is. So if the cramp is in the bottom of your foot, you want to stretch your foot the opposite way. If it's on the top, stretch it the opposite way. So whenever you're having a cramp, think about where the cramp is and you want to move it in the opposite direction. That will usually help to relieve the cramp. But you can also just do really small chunks of the exercise and build up until you're able to tolerate it better. And as you tolerate it better, you should have less cramps. And that's been my experience working with older adults with that. Did you have anything to add on that, Leigh, about the cramping?
No, that's perfect. I mean, sometimes there are supplements you can take and things like that, but that's a little beyond our scope in this presentation.
Exactly. Yeah. So if it's like a common problem, you can also talk to your doctor about that for sure. But yeah, so in terms of leg and hip strength, one of the best exercises you can do is squats or sit stands. So you can do it in any chair. Right now I'm using a rolly chair. Don't do that. It just happens to be what I have in here. But we definitely don't want to do that when we're doing sit to stands. So learn from me. But we can start with a handle if we need to use the handle to push up, but we're just standing and sitting down. So that would be the easiest, would be using a handle. And then harder would be crossing your arms over your chest, going up and down. And as you get better, you can even kind of hover on top of the chair and standing up. So that's really good for building strength into the legs. And as you get better, if you're working with a trainer, you can also add weight to it or do more repetitions. Right? So the other ones that are great is butt kicks. So heel to bum. You can do that while you're holding onto a chair. If you do have a mobility issue, you can do it kind of sitting. If you're able to kind of shift to one side without feeling unstable, and then you can still bring your heel towards your bum. So that's another great one. You can also straighten out the leg to kick out. I'll show you from the side. So that's another good one there. Core strength is also super important. So I'm going to show you some exercises for that. So we can use the ball and just hold it out in front of you and twisting side to side, but I want you to go nice and slow and controlled, and you should feel it on the sides of your body. So you can do it with a normal ball, or as you get better, you can do it with a weighted medicine ball like this. Same thing. Okay. The other exercise that's really great is a palette press. So we're moving away from our body. So I have the medicine ball, so I'll do that here, but you can do it with a dumbbell, kettlebell, soup can, anything. So make sure you're starting with good posture. You're pushing the weight away from you, keeping your core tight, bringing it back towards you. Pushing it away, bringing it back. Okay, and we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so in terms of balance, one of the important things is just postural work as well. So making sure that you are trying to stand, sit with proper posture. So keeping the shoulders back and down, head over the shoulders, over your hips, over your knees, over your ankles. We want to have everything in nice alignment. We always want to try and keep our core tight if we can, and make sure we're doing breathing properly as well. So all that's going to help with the posture, and the more we can have that proper posture, the less likely we are going to have falls as well. If we're very like front heavy, very like crouch forward, we are more likely to tip forward. And as well as the muscles all on the back side of our body are strong postural muscles that help us when we start to tip forward, when we start to trip, to not fall. So we want to make sure we're keeping those muscles nice and strong. So things like a row, so bringing your shoulder blades together in the back, with a weight, without a weight, with a band. These are all different options. Other exercises, so we have kind of your typical balance exercises. These are best to do when someone else is home, or you can use a chair for guidance with your trainer, but trying the different positions. So doing 2 feet, first with your eyes open, trying to make sure that you can stay stable for 30 to 45 seconds. Then you can do the same thing, but close your eyes. Progressing from there, we can do 1 foot slightly in front of the other. I'll show you from the front. And then same thing, eyes open, eyes closed. We can go into a full tandem stance, so 1 foot in front of the other and 1 foot at a time. So all those are different options, different progressions. Again, best to do it with someone else nearby just in case, and also keeping an aid nearby. Even me, when I'm doing balance exercises, sometimes I lose my balance, so it's good to have something nearby. The other thing you can practice is take a blanket, take a pillow, practice standing on that. So it makes a little bit of an uneven surface, and our life is not on even surface. So when we walk on the street, there are little divots and stuff in the ground. So it's good to practice being able to adjust to the differences in the ground. So you can, again, do eyes open, eyes closed, do those different positions on there as well, right? And yes, okay, perfect. This is one of my favorites for balance and fall prevention. So one thing as we get older, as we were saying, with our feet, often we lose a lot of mobility and strength in our feet. And so a lot of people lose the ability to bring their toes all the way up to their nose. So when they go to walk, they can't bring their foot up properly, so they tend to kind of shuffle. And then you're more likely to hit something and trip and fall. So what I like to have a lot of my clients practice is stepping over something and landing on their heel first and then going onto their toes. So very simple, we'll just put a weight down. Again, this is another one that's better to do with someone there just to be safe. And also use your supports, use a cane if you need to, or the wall. So we're gonna step over the weight. Toes should be facing up, hit with my heel, then I plant my foot. And we can do both sides. So I like to step both feet over, but then take turns with which leg is leading so that we get proper work on both sides. And I like to do stepping back over as well. With stepping back over, I don't really focus too much on how you plant the foot, but we just want to make sure that you can step over without hitting the weight. All right? Obviously, the higher the weight is, the more challenging it will be. And with any of the exercises that I showed earlier as well, we can always make it more difficult with a band. So for example, we can put the band around our foot. And if we're practicing pointing our toes down, we pull up on the band so that we have a little bit of resistance. Same thing, we can put ankle weights on. That will also make it more difficult. All right.
Great.
So, any questions on the exercises before we move on? Actually, there is one other thing as I think of it, just because there was a question earlier on getting up when you've fallen. So I want to just go over that quickly because this is a really good one. So it's the best thing you can do is practice how you would get up if you fall. And also just think about what you would do. Who would you call? You know, are you going to wear a medical necklace where you have access to call? Are you going to keep your phone nearby? Are you able to get up if you have a fall? So again, a good one to practice with a trainer or with someone else nearby. But if we are on the ground and we've fallen, a few things. We can kind of crawl to whatever's close by and use that to push ourselves up. But if you're able to, the best way to get up from the floor is to kind of turn onto one side and kind of maneuver yourself until you can get into all fours. Put one foot in front, and then using the strength of your arms and the foot that's in the back, you're going to push down and push up. So that's the best way to get up from the ground. As I said, you can also kind of crawl and use things to push yourself up. But it's important to practice that before something happens so that you know how you're going to get up from the floor, or if you're not currently able to get up from the floor, working towards those steps with someone like a vintage fitness trainer. Yeah. Linda did put in here that after the knee replacement, you're not able to kneel. So that is definitely something you can, again, work with your trainer to focus on solutions as to, you know, what's going to be the best way for you to get up from the ground. It is going to be dependent person to person, but there are more than one strategy for sure. But without knowing your history, it's hard to say which one's going to be the best one for you. So we did want to chat about how we can make the home environment safer. So we have some ideas here, and then if you have other ideas, we can definitely throw that in the chat. So replacing things with putting non-slip mats, grab bars, railings, raised toilet seats. Really important is reducing the clutter of the area. So the more clutter you have, the more likely you are to have something to trip on. And then keeping the floors nice and dry. So if there's spills, or if it's icy, making sure there's salt down so that you have more grip. Using proper shoes with proper grip, night lights if you need them, and keeping pathways clear. Did anyone have any other thoughts?
One of the most common hazards I've seen in the home is usually when we go to clients' homes, maybe a rug that was down on the floor was okay for a time, but then once you start to, if you lose some mobility or some proprioception, as we talked about before, suddenly that mat can become a problem, that carpet can become a problem. So always looking around to see, is there something that I maybe almost tripped on or I have potentially tripped on before? And always just continuing to be more and more diligent about how to keep yourself safe.
Yep. Katrin put, hopefully I pronounced your name right, in the chat here, a really good tip that anything spent for making the home safer for seniors is tax deductible. So save your receipt for grab bars, lever faucets, high toilets. So yeah. It's awesome. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right. So safety aids. I think there can be a lot of stigma around using things like walkers or canes. But I think sometimes it helps to think about, what would you prefer? Like feeling a little bit self-conscious about it and preventing yourself from a fall, or having to deal with a fall and all the recovery behind that. So it is important, and it can allow you to do more things. So you might not be comfortable going to certain places because the surface is uneven, and a cane or a walker may give you that extra independence, which again will help you prevent future falls, because if you're doing more, then you're moving your body more and you're less likely to have reductions in strength and mobility. Glasses and hearing aids, also super important. So as we touched on earlier, in terms of our balance system, our visual system, our ears are very important for balance. So it is important to keep on top of that as well. And then wearing properly fitted shoes and non-slip footwear. I think the interesting thing sometimes is to think about when to wear shoes, when not to wear shoes. There's always kind of pros and cons to both. When we do spend some time barefoot, we do use the muscles of our foot more, but we gotta kind of balance what's going to be best in which situations.
Yeah, and just sort of platforming off of that, when we're talking about appropriate, well-fitting footwear, especially if you're going to participate in some of these exercises, it would be footwear that covers the heels and the toes, less chance for any issues. Now, Allison's just shared something as well. Thank you for this. I don't love it, she says, but I know I'll walk more confidently and further if I use my walker. Most of the time I use a cane. So yeah, it's important to know, are you going to actually go further? Are you going to get more exercise if you use it? It's an adjustment for sure when you have to use a mobility device. But if you're getting more exercise and you're walking properly with it, then that's wonderful. And Mary says regarding footwear, non-slip socks are good if you don't want to be wearing shoes. So yeah, a lot of our clients use the ones with the grips on the bottom. Those are fantastic. What do you think, Anna?
Yeah. So long as they are truly non-slip. Socks can be a little tricky sometimes. But also, like, if you're depending on what you're doing, And as I said, it really depends person to person. Sometimes it is safer to wear shoes in the house, but there is benefit to walking barefoot in safe environments, just so that we're using the muscles of our foot, or even just while we're sitting on the couch, taking off our shoes, doing some of those little exercises, reminding our feet to work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of touched a little bit on it earlier, but diet is super important, mainly because we don't want to be having excessive fatigue or dizziness, because that can alter our balance and our state of consciousness. So we want to make sure that we're having our proper fruits and vegetables, and then enough protein to mitigate that muscle loss and that bone loss that usually happens with aging. Supplements can be beneficial, but that's going to be more of a conversation with a dietitian or your doctor as to what would be right for you. But having those conversations and making sure that your diet is appropriate and any supplements that you need to take, you're taking. As well as health checkups. So we want to deal with any issues as early as possible, because again, that can cause those issues. So if we're having any sort of like dizziness, fatigue, issues with our eyes or our ears, that can affect our balance. And then also being aware of how any medications we're on, how that can affect your balance, alertness, that sort of stuff, and how they interact with each other as well. Okay, so now the best part. You're welcome to ask us any questions that you haven't had answered yet.
Like Anna said, don't be shy. It's been good, actually. Nice participation today. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So you can put it in the chat or feel free to unmute and give your comments, questions.
We are going to be sending you, like I said, a copy of the webinar. So you're
Can you
going
hear
to
me
have
now?
a recording. Yep.
Okay. If you are going to fall, is there a certain way that you should try to fall if you have the hindsight? Sideways, forwards?
That one's a tricky one. The most common, I would say, in terms of what people do is they try to brace with their hands.
Yeah.
But especially when as we get older, you are very likely, if you brace with your hands, to fracture something in your wrist.
I did.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say in most cases, if you can fall on your bum is best, but it's a tricky one.
Okay.
For sure. What do you think, Leigh?
I was just going to say, falling backwards, like right backwards, where you could potentially hit your head is not great. So I would rather get you on your knees or your butt, like Anna said.
Yeah.
So, but we don't always have a choice. But at the same time, if we do some of these other things, hopefully that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions. I'm sorry to hear about your wrists as well. Yes. So what does a lifetime of high heels do to your ankles and feet? That's from Gina. Yeah.
Okay, there's lots of questions. Yeah, so we know that high heels don't generally put us in the best position because our feet aren't, naturally supposed to be this way. So I mean, there could be changes to your arch, so the part on the bottom, you could have developed different bunions, different things like that. But there's not really much you can do about what has happened, but it's the more you can do those exercises that I was showing you, keeping your foot moving, working on those small muscles to strengthen your foot, that's gonna benefit you, exponentially.
Okay.
Yes, and Hillary says she does the, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
No, you can I was going to say the same thing. So go ahead.
Hillary says she does the raising heel exercises at the bus stop. So a lot of people stack their habits along with something they already do. So waiting for your toast or waiting at the bus or pumping gas, lifting your heels as you do those things. So those are really neat ways to remember to do them because sometimes we have the best intentions and it's tough to get around to it, right? Yeah. And we are going to send you a copy of the recording so you can watch it again and again, and you can share it with anybody you think could benefit from this information. If you have any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to us by email and let us know. We're happy to answer your questions. If you want a little more guidance from a personal trainer with Vintage Fitness, the number's at the bottom, or again, send us an email.
Yeah.
And we're just so happy to have spent this time with you today. It's always great to see you and spend some time together.